Hey, we are with Laura Bautista. She has very encouraging story about her healing journey in sclerosis. So, if you suffer from this disease and you need some hope, please join us. We will be here to answer your questions. I'm very excited to have you on the show, and especially the topic we're going to talk about. She is Laura Bautista, board certified holistic health practitioner, trauma informed functional medicine health coach, and she also had lots of other certifications. I couldn't bring it here. So happy to be with you. Please tell me about yourself. How did you start knowing that you have this disease, and how could you be healed from it?
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful opening. And I love what you're doing here. I think this is so important. And shining light on hope is really a powerful step in moving in a direction of, reactivating a healing state. And so essentially the Cliff Notes version, the short version of my story is that I woke up one morning and my fingers were like this, completely mangled and all curved up and curled up, and I couldn't straighten them out without forcing them to be straight. It was actually this hand, it was the left side. And so I had grown up with a lot of symptoms in my life. So I always had digestive issues. I would get sick a lot of infections, a lot of colds, a lot of anxiety and skin issues and rashes and things that I was kind of told was normal. And here, just take a pill. Right. And I come from a medical family. My father's a medical doctor, family of doctors, five doctors all in like one side, just on his side of the family. So I had no issue with access to healthcare. It was just, in the culture, it was just very normalized. You have symptoms and you just take a pill and you move on. And so when I woke up this morning and my hand was like not able to straighten out on its own, I had experienced so many symptoms in my life that I didn't even I wasn't even that alarmed. I was just like, oh, another weird symptom, because it had been so normal to me. So I went along my day, and then I was at work. I was a cashier at a supermarket. And while I was, running people's groceries and ringing them up, it happened again. And this time it was in front of people. And there were a lot of people watching me and looking at me. And I was so scared and embarrassed. And then that's when we started looking into my parents and I started then looking into what could be wrong. So coming from a family of doctors, I had a doctor friend for everything. We knew a cardiologist, we knew a urologist, we had a podiatrist, we could just call them. Like my dad had their numbers. So I got into a lot of different doctors' offices, started seeing people. At the end of the diagnostic process, it came back that all of the diagnostic tests were supportive of MS, multiple sclerosis. And so I was 21 years old. I was living a relatively normal life, a New Yorker, go New Yorker. I was drinking heavily. I was smoking all the time, smoking Newports. I did whatever I wanted. I wasn't even conscious of health, right, at all. And so it completely changed my life. It was basically, I was told that now your life is going to be completely different. You're going to have to take daily injectable medications. You're going to have to go to the hospital when things get bad. You're never going to get any better. But if you take these drugs, there's a slight chance that you might not get worse. So I got on that path. I was a very good patient. And lo and behold, I never got any better. I started getting really curious and kind of rebellious. That's kind of in my
Sorry,
nature.
how old were you when first time you were diagnosed with MS?
21. I was 21
Wow.
years old. Yeah. So it was like really young. And I think that's actually kind of common, that people are diagnosed in their early 20s nowadays. And and so it just completely flipped my life upside down. And it wasn't until I went into the doctor after years and years and years of trying to be a good patient, and nothing was working. And I was feeling really discouraged. And so I went into the doctor, and she told me, I understand that it's really hard to stay on the injections and all of this stuff. And so there's a pill form of medication that we can put you on. However, there's one really significant side effect, which is that it's going to slow down your heart rate. And so we'll just have to do some EKGs and we'll put you on some other stuff. And then at that moment, that was like my no more moment, because you keep giving me solutions that are not actually solutions. They're not actually helping me. They're just bringing me in all of these different directions. And intuitively, I knew I was done. My father was with me in the office that day. I looked at him and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Then he started asking them about functional medicine and Dr. Mark Hyman and Dr. Terry Walls and the gut-brain connection and all of these things. And they looked at him like he had 5 heads. Like they just looked at him like he was crazy. And so I knew that just was not going to be where I was going to find the answers. So then that's when I started into a deep dive into health coaching, nutrition, functional medicine, elimination diets. And my entire body lit up, and really the rest is history. I did a lot of different things to help myself heal, but that's basically the short version, is that I tried the Western stuff. I was really committed, and then I started to fall off, and then I rebelled, and here I am. It's been almost 10 years, and I've not had any symptoms, no Western intervention, and there's no turning back from that, right? Like once you feel that, all you want to do is stay on that path. And so that's why I'm here.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's what I did with functional medicine as well.
Yeah.
So as you see, when you have a lot of symptoms like gut and maybe brain fog or like collection of these symptoms, then you just ignore it, and one day it gets you, right?
Yes,
So you
exactly.
have to be very careful if you have these kind of symptoms. If I know the problem is you go to doctor, medical doctors, some of them who believe in holistic health, they go deeper to different
Mhm.
part of the body. Like other day, I was talking to one of my relatives. She's senior, and I said, yeah, since I'm taking functional medicine and doing a lot of follow-ups, I don't have to use puffs because I had asthma.
Mm.
And she said, and I said, yeah, one of the reason was my gut. And she said, gut is not related to asthma. you know,
Wow.
that's a belief that other people have, unfortunately. And I see even in them, there are lots of mistake in their lifestyle, which is not really right. And with a little bit tweak, they can be healed. And just trying to find your triggers and avoid them. And after some time, if you follow the lifestyle, you can actually reverse your disease. So
Many times.
what were your triggers?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about
Oh
that.
my gosh. Yeah. Such a good question. And so important to know your triggers, to track them, right? And to also avoid them and then grow capacity, because you can't always avoid your triggers, right? And so for me, it was really interesting to figure it out, because I used to laugh at gluten-free. So I was a waitress in around that time, and I would like roll my eyes when people would ask for gluten-free stuff, and so it wasn't until I started. So I had another autoimmune diagnosis as well, apart from multiple sclerosis. It was urticarial vasculitis, which is essentially chronic hives. And so after a while, not only was I having these horrible multiple sclerosis flare-ups where I would go completely numb and weak on the left side, it was like my right side was carrying my left. I was also breaking out in these islands of hives all over my body. And it was, not related, right? Nothing was related according to what I was being told. And it was completely random. So one of the things one of the gifts that I was given, and I feel like this was such a divine intervention, was the documentary Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead was presented to me, like on Netflix. It was just on, and I put it on, and it was about urticarial vasculitis. It was about chronic hives. And these guys who had these like horrible skin rashes and hives were healing themselves through juicing, through green juicing. And so I saw that and I was like, okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I've always had this kind of like that kind of attitude of like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I got myself a juicer, a blender, and I started incorporating that into my life. And that's when I realized how many food sensitivities I had. I wasn't tracking. I had no idea. And so gluten, dairy, all of these processed foods that I was eating. I mean, I ate like crap. All of these things, dairy used to give me heart palpitations, like pounding. And so I started to really tend to my diet. And so that was a major, major player. And then I was also using a ton of toxins in my home. So I loved designer perfume. I had at least 4 or 5 designer perfumes running at the same time, just like rotating them. Used a lot of cleaning chemicals and products in my house, a lot of stuff on my skin. And now I paint my nails very randomly, but like back then it was all the time. And so lots and lots and lots of toxins. I started learning about that, removing that. Again, powered up. I felt more power inside of my body. Then I dealt with the gut, a lot of, which also kind of went with the food sensitivities, and that really helped. And the number one thing, the number one trigger for me, and I think it's honestly for most people, was nervous system dysregulation and not knowing how to handle stress and emotions. And at the core of that, I think it was being really disconnected from who I really am. And from my own body and my own spirit. And so there were many triggers, and I could probably name more, but those were the main ones. And those are the ones that I think everybody needs to be looking at, no matter what chronic health issue is presenting or acute health issue. So yeah, those were in a nutshell, those were mine.
The interesting point is, as you said, there is a combination of chronic disease. Like I talk to so many people with autoimmunity issues. They have celiac, they have lupus all together, you know, and sometimes they don't even recognize that they have these issues because, as you said, as you know, in functional medicine we don't diagnose, we go holistically all of
Right.
the body. And because I guess there are some symptoms that is very common in different disease, so
Right.
it's so difficult to catch what you really have. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's, let's say if there is a problem in your food, you say, oh, okay, that's fine. Let's say like some rashes on your food, and you just try to apply some pomade, and that's it. And you don't know what's that coming from. And I
Right.
talk to so many people, again, maybe you have some allergy to some food, right? And the problem with the food allergy is that sometimes it doesn't show the same time when you take it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe the next day you have
Right.
some allergy. And sometimes people take it for like so many days because they love chocolate, they love processed food, they love sugar and gluten, and that's part of their lifestyle. They
Right.
can't be separated from that,
Yeah,
right?
and you're absolutely right. I mean, you can have an autoimmune process happening and it's not showing up on a lab, right? No one's testing for it. Or you can have a food reaction, like you said, that doesn't present itself till a day later or a couple of days later. And it's also not always going to show up in the form of a digestive symptom, which is what people are looking for. Like, oh, no, I do fine with dairy because they don't have diarrhea or bloating or gas, but then they get these these rashes on their scalp, and it could be related, but we're not trained to think that way, right? It's a whole this process is a whole unlearning, and then a whole like learning something new, right? Like we have like as you said, we're not really focused on the diagnosis. The diagnosis matters to the person, but as the practitioner, we can see this is a systems issue, and this is multiple systems at the same time. And it's also the multiple systems within the same individual, right? So we're not segmenting these pieces, we're actually addressing them all together and in a way that suits that individual person. So it's a completely different way of looking at it versus what I was sold in the beginning, which was like, you're just going to have to deal with this and then get worse. And so, yeah, it can show up a lot of different ways. So again, back to the tracking, right? And your triggers, the more we start to pay attention just by even listing our foods and even listing our symptoms that day or the emotions that we feel, we can start to connect root cause with symptom and start to remove it from our identity, right? Which is
I
another
like that.
huge belief piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say for cancer, or for cancer, again, it's very tricky. They, what I just realized, even in clients I have, they actually suffer from fatigue for a long time. They are always tired. They don't know
Mhm.
what's happening in their body, and when the symptoms show up, all it's a bit late.
Right.
It's a bit late. I mean, it's not impossible,
Sure.
but it's getting a little bit time consuming to just remove those symptoms and get back to normal pace.
Yeah, I mean, it takes
Yeah,
energy to make energy, you know,
yeah,
and I really resonate with that fatigue piece and just having fatigue for a really long time and thinking just that like, oh, I'm just a tired person. Or when I was a kid, I thought I was just lazy. But really, like, I think I was just like very inflamed and reacting to all of these foods that I shouldn't have been eating. But like my parents didn't know, right? Our parents do their
yeah.
best, or, it's just it wasn't part of the curriculum in medical school for my father, not entirely, but then once I got sick, he sought it out, and so the beauty is that there are answers available. They're not going to be in the mainstream, not really. But yeah, you can really look at this and start to see, like, does this resonate for me? If you're listening right now and you've lived your whole life with fatigue and just feeling really tired and brain foggy, and maybe you thought you were lazy, well, maybe you're not. Maybe you just have a lot of inflammation. Maybe you have a parasite or a gut issue and a gut imbalance or something else. So we have so much more power than we've ever been taught. And one of the biggest mistakes that we make as individuals sometimes is we start to identify ourselves with the thing that's coming up, and that's easy to do when you're given a serious diagnosis and it just drops on your life, and now you're like, I am this thing, or I have this thing. And I'll tell you what, I never resonated with that. From the moment I was diagnosed, I did not feel like I had this thing, which I think was a little bit of denial in the beginning, which ended up serving me because I never had that belief. You mentioned belief early on. Maybe it was even before we started recording, but belief is like, oh yeah, you mentioned it with what the asthma and gut connection, right? It's like, if you don't believe that, it's going to be really hard for you to like find solutions there. But if you can align to someone else's experience and believe them, then you can get a little closer to believing it for yourself. So it's pretty cool.
Laura, I see you have somatic experience as well. So,
Yes.
what is this and how it like, I know in PTSD, I have another show called PTSD Self Healing,
Cool.
and we talk about somatic a little bit, but can you explain more
Yeah.
how it connects to your own health issues and your clients?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So it's really cool because I found somatic experiencing about 2 years ago. So I went through a very deep trauma in my family. My sister passed, and it was very unexpected, really rocked our world. And so it affected my health in a really, in a way that I had not experienced in a long time. And so I started getting into, so somatic experiencing is a trauma healing modality. And it's basically working with the body's language versus trying to figure it out from the mind. And what you do is it's a nervous system polyvagal theory kind of based practice, but to simplify, it's essentially listening to the body's cues and creating a space of safety from within, because we know that the body heals when it is calm. And so when I talk about somatics, I realized that I was actually doing this before I even knew what it was, by simply teaching people how to feel their bodies, right? How to feel when you eat something and it doesn't agree with you, or how to feel when someone comes near you and something happens inside of your body where you feel uncomfortable. All of these are really powerful signals that are coming from within, from your innate wisdom, the innate intelligence within. And so essentially I started with the food piece and teaching people how to feel their bodies and how their emotions impact them on a symptomatic level. And then from refining that with the modality of somatic experiencing to help people actually regulate their nervous systems, discharge excess stress, essentially, and essentially come back to a place of safety and wholeness as best as they can, because that is where the body maintains a healing state. So it's been some of the most impactful work, and I think it's missing in a lot of the models. And in fact, it's missing from almost every medical model that exists out there, including functional medicine. I think we need to tie it in with functional medicine, right? Because they're so interweaved. And I think more and more it's coming together, but there's the marriage of somatic experiencing and root cause healing is just, I think it's the future. I really, really do. And I think it's going to give a lot of power back to the person, which is where it belongs,
Great. So we have a few minutes left. I see you have a Facebook group, right?
I have a couple of Facebook groups. They're not super active right now, but I am on Facebook. That's a good way to connect with me.
So you have a website, rootyourradiance.com.
Yes.
And because it's go to podcast as well, so I just read it.
Yeah.
So for people who want to find you, what do you do in your website? What do you have there?
Yeah, in the website, you mean? Yeah, so essentially I help people in two different ways. So I help, mostly women are the ones that hire me, although I do have some male clients, but women who are struggling with autoimmune issues, digestive issues, and inability to lose weight. Those are kind of the main areas where I help people. And then you'll also see on my website that I help other health practitioners who are wanting to live their purpose and grow their business. One of the things that happened really organically in my practice was that I was helping people heal their bodies, and then I was attracting other coaches and practitioners who haven't figured out their own stuff. One of their root causes was that they couldn't make money living their purpose. And so I have a business background. I have a business degree. That's what I did before this. And then also I just love business. So I started helping them with that. They started living their purpose, making money. Cells light up, stress reduces, and they start to feel really, really good and confident. So I love helping both sides, but that's what you'll see on my site. I also have a podcast on there that you can check out and a bunch of free resources too.
What's the name of your podcast?
Podcast is called Prosperous Practice. So it's mainly for practitioners who are looking to grow their business, but it's also for natural medicine enthusiasts and healers of all kinds, self-healers who want insider knowledge. They want to know what else is there available to me. And so it's kind of a mix. Next season, I'm doing autoimmune origins. So we're going to be talking about a lot of these issues and where they really come from many different perspectives, which I'm really excited about.
So Laura, for your last word, please give me some encouraging words to people who are suffering from MS. I love to hear that.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. And so I will say that belief is everything. And unfortunately, a lot of what is being told is actually, it's a very narrow scope of what is actually available and possible out there. Now, I'm not saying that every single person can have an experience like me where they're going to 100% reverse their multiple sclerosis. But what I am saying is that a lot more people are doing this than you're hearing about. There are so many people out there healing themselves from chronic health issues, from all of these unhealable things. It's just not in the mainstream. And so my invitation is to explore other people's stories. How are other people doing it? Because the truth is, if they can do it, you can do it. You're not separate. They're not more special than you. I'm not more special than you. I was just relentless in finding the answers. And there are other people like myself who have been through it, who are ready to help you find the accelerated path, right? There's no shortcuts, but there is a way to do this in a matter of months or instead of years sometimes. So that is what I'll say, is that there are just so many more solutions than what's being fed to us in the mainstream and the Western model. And if you're listening to this show, you probably already know that, but just really reinforcing that, and that there are people like myself who thought that I would never get any better, and here I am. Right. And I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to stop sharing. I'm never going to stop helping people. And this in itself keeps me in a healing state, like this fuels me, and maybe you can even feel that. So
Thank you so much. It was very inspiring. And I just have a message for you people. If you are watching this, please don't get very disappointed if you have any autoimmune issues, chronic disease. This show is for people who already healed themselves. So there is a way. Please go deeper in yourself.
yes.
Try to find the cause and the root, and try to connect your mind and body, and that's the way you can heal yourself.
Yes, the body's always working toward a healing state. It wants to be healthy. It just does by design. So you can trust that.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Hopefully
you
I
so
can
much.
have you more and more in my shows.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
yeah, see you again. Please subscribe to Quanta Calhoun Transition channel and order my book The Gap in Amazon. Thank you for watching.